This video is going to cover adding the subscription option into our blog application. So this is going to be for a monthly recurring membership that you can just click on a little button, or you'll get sent to it if you're logged in. You'll also be able to manage it through our little billing portal. This will all be done with Stripe and the PayGem. If you missed part 1, I'd recommend that you go and watch the previous part. I think it was like episode 15 in this series. You don't need to watch the rest of the series to catch up. Just watch episode 15. I'll have a link to it in the video description, but basically there we set up a one-time purchase with Stripe. This time we're going to be using some of that to create a subscription instead. Okay, so we've now logged into a default user and a fresh instance of the application. If I come over to the Manage Billing section, it'll take me to the billing portal. Here I don't have any information stored yet. And if I come up to this Buy My Super Deluxe Cat button, it takes me to a checkout page where I can click Buy Now. I'll click cancel on the fake phone number, and you can see here I'm buying the platinum edition of my cat, and I'll just hit 4242 to get all of this set up. Once this is done, we click pay and the payment goes through, and then we're back at the checkout page or the receipt page. So we're going to do something similar with our subscription. So we'll come back to the home page and we'll just add a little subscription button here. Now, one thing to note while you're working with Stripe, I do have a instance of the Stripe CLI running here. And again, I would check the previous video to see how I'm running this, but I can just run a cat real quick. And you can see the command that I'm running here. It's just stripe listen -- forward -2 localhost port 3000, and then the webhook for the PayGem's Stripe integration. So I'm going to go ahead and run this again. And now we should be good to go. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to stop the server because we're going to start by generating our migrations, which means I'm going to have to full screen this. And we do have a couple things we're going to add here. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to say Rails G migration, and then we'll just say add customer info to user. And we're going to have a subscription _ status. Let me bump this up just to make sure you can see this. The subscription status will be of type string by default, so we don't need to put anything. We'll then have a subscription _end _date, which is going to be of type datetime. And then we're going to have a subscription _start _date, which is going to be of type datetime. And we're just storing this so we don't have to hit the remote API every time we need this information. And it also allows us to persist it. If we are, let's say the user cancels their subscription, this allows us to check when the subscription would have expired so that we don't immediately revoke access. If you want to immediately revoke access, then just don't do the check that we're going to do. But this is basically it for the database migration. We're now going to create a quick user concern, which I'll just go ahead and increase the font size here a bit. For this, we're just going to call this, I think I called it like subscription _concern.rb, and then I'll go ahead and I'll full screen this. Basically for this, we just have a module which extends from active support, and then it has 2 ends at the bottom here. I guess it has 1 end. And then we just have a included do block. And inside of this included do block, we need 2 methods. The first one is going to be the method we use to actually check what our subscription status is. And the second one is just going to be a check to see if our subscription is active. So for this first one, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to grab the payment processor's subscription from our user. So the user has a payment processor, which has a subscription, which has a processor _ subscription. This is going to give us access to check if, check what the status of the subscription is and when it expires. We then do a check to see if this is nil. If it's nil, we don't have a subscription, so we're not even going to think about it. After that, we're going to call an update method on our user where we set the subscription status, which is actually just subscription.status. We then set the subscription end time, which is going to be the subscription _end _date. And that's going to be equal to the time.at of the subscription.current period end. So this is how Stripe is telling you when this sub expires. Let's say I subscribe to you on May 18th. This will then expire, or the current period end will be like June 18th if it's a monthly subscription. We're going to do the same thing for the start date. I don't think I actually use it in any of my logic, but it's always good to cover this in case someone wants to know how to check how long someone's been subscribed or when the current period start is or whatever. So that's essentially it for this check subscription status. Now we need to check if the user has an active subscription. And to do this, what I did, and you're going to want to change this probably, is I call check subscription status if the subscription end date is nil. So if we check when the date expired is and it's empty, then we might have a subscription and we're just not synced up for whatever reason. So in that case, we should check. Or if the subscription end date is like past whenever now is, or before whenever now is. So let's say the subscription end date is, I don't know, April, and right now is May. Then we're going to want to check the subscription status because of course May is after April. And if we are currently expired, we want to make sure that we are actually expired. So you can forego this and do the check every time. My concern with that was you're going to be hitting the API a lot, and I just felt like that wasn't entirely necessary. If we give them a couple minutes of free access, we give them a couple minutes of free access. But of course, that's up to your discretion. Now, what that means is we essentially have a check like this where we say subscription end date.nil. If it's nil, return false. Otherwise, return whether this is an active subscription right now. So if we still have time remaining, then return whatever that condition is, which would be true. So that's it for this subscription concern. Next thing is the user model. Now the user model is pretty simple. We need to include our concern. So we just include the subscription concern. And you're not going to believe this, but at this point we are done in here. So let's come over and let's create our members controller for the actual subscription page. For this, I'm just going to type Rails G controller members, and I'm going to give it a dashboard action, just so I don't have to do that again in a minute here. So what is the members controller going to look like? Well, essentially we have a check at the start, which is, are we logged in? If we're logged in, we're using devise for that, of course. Then we want to check the subscription status. In the case of the subscription status, it's going to be a private method down here. A private method down here, which is going to be named check subscription status. And then we just see if the current user has an active subscription, which of course comes from our subscription concern. So if this returns true, then we're good. Otherwise, so unless this returns true, which in this case it returns true, so we have to enter the loop, then we want to do a redirect. Now you can either redirect to the root path of the application with an alert, or you can redirect to the checkout path. So we're going to do that instead. We're going to redirect to the checkout path, which has our button, and we're going to need to pass in a line item, which is going to be our actual subscription item. For this, I have a line item right here, but we're going to have to create one for you guys. So we're going to come over to the Stripe dashboard. Once you're in the Stripe dashboard, you're going to want to go to products, and then you're going to want to add a product. I'll just add one right now. I'll call this one the Percy Monthly Positive Reviews, and then I'll just put more words here. We'll give it an image. We'll go with this one right here, and that'll get uploaded hopefully. There we go. And we can come down to the additional options. None of this matters, but down here we want to change it to a recurring amount. We'll say it's $14.99. And then billing is monthly. Metered is something you can use for like the amount of times they've used it. So this would be great for if you're doing an API, then you would want to set like a metered usage so you can charge more for certain actions or whatever floats your fancy there. You then have a price description and the ability to add a free trial. I'm going to go ahead and click Save Product here. This will give us our Percy Monthly Positive Reviews, which has an API ID. We'll just copy that. We can then come over here and we can paste in our API ID for this item. We can set a payment mode. This is going to be equal to subscription here. In the previous episode, I believe this was equal to pay or something. We can check the checkouts controller. It was equal to payment. So instead of payment, we're doing subscription here. And then after that, we close this off and we just add in an alert, which I'll copy over because you don't need to see me type this. Then we want to add our two ends here so that our code formats itself and behaves nicely. This is something we're going to have to copy and reproduce in the checkouts controller because we're going to change sort of how our buttons work on the home page. So we're going to actually go into our home page real quick. So we're going to go into views, pages, and the home page, and we're going to change how the Super Deluxe button works to add in a subscription button as well. So essentially what we're going to do, we have this checkout path. We just want to add some arguments here. We're going to add the line items. For this Super Deluxe cat line item, we want to come into our checkouts controller. So controllers, checkouts controller, and we want to grab this line item right here. And then we'll come back to the home page and we'll just paste that in. After we have the line item, we then need to set the payment method, which in this case, the payment method is going to be payment_mode, and it's going to be payment because we're just using a card for this. We're not using a subscription. For the subscription button, we're going to have a link to a button that says subscribe to me. It'll go to the checkout path again. And in here, all we want to do is come into the subscription, the members controller, and we want to grab these two items. So we'll come back here, we'll paste in these two items. And then at the bottom, we'll just add in a comma for the button success, and then we can close this. At this point, we do want to set a check here if the portal session URL is nil. Otherwise, we might run into an issue there if we don't have anything to manage yet, I think. But we can check that real quick. We'll go ahead and run a Rails S just to see how much we've broken. Come over to the application and refresh. It'll ask us to run the pending migrations. I'll go ahead and do that without thinking. And now I'm on the home page. So first thing I want to check out, make sure this works when I'm signed out. So I'm going to open up an incognito tab, and this seems to be working. And both of these buttons take me to the sign in page. I'm now going to check and make sure my Super Deluxe cat button still works by clicking on buy now. And it looks like it's still taking me to the right page. So for the rest of this, we can just ignore it. Next, we'll check the subscribe to me button. This takes me to the same checkout page, but with a different button. You would, of course, want to style this however you see fit or use multiple pages. In this case, I'm just using the same page because it doesn't matter. I'll click buy now. It'll ask for a phone number. And this is taking us to the Super Deluxe Percy Stanley's Parable Edition 2. This does not seem correct, so let's come over here and make sure that the subscribe to me button is actually taking us to the right place. Oh, I see what's happening. So the button's working because I can see the argument at the bottom has the right stuff. But of course, I forgot to actually come into the checkouts controller and update how this checkouts controller works. So we have those parameters being passed. We would, of course, want to sanitize them by doing something like private and then def checkout _ params, etc. I'm going to skip that just in the interest of time. And instead, we're going to come up to the mode. Our mode is now going to be just the parameter for the payment mode. Our line items are just going to be a parameter for the line items. And we'll leave the checkout success URL for now, just so we have something to test with. You then save that, come over here, click subscribe to me. Should take us to the proper page. If I click buy now, it should show us the subscribe to Percy monthly positive reviews for $14.99 per month. And more words go here. So now let's hit 424242 a whole bunch of times until we're through all of this nonsense. We'll give it a name. I'll just put my actual name in here. And then I'll give myself a zip code of 42424. I'll click subscribe. It'll process this. And we'll get a whole bunch of stuff in the console, and then it should redirect us. We're now subscribed to the monthly positive reviews. And now we can check how this works. So we'll come back to the dashboard. We'll click on manage billing first, just so you can see this. And you can see here we have a current plan, which is our monthly positive reviews for $14.99 per month. We can either update the plan, which right now really won't do anything. Apparently, I also have a Velvet monthly from my demo application, but we can ignore that. So I guess if you have multiple plans, you can actually just click through here. That's pretty neat. I guess it must be tied to the API key. We can also cancel our plan. If we cancel our plan, we have the option to cancel or pause it. No pun intended. But if I click on cancel plan, it'll then ask me for a reason why I've canceled it. I'll say it's too expensive. I'll hit submit. That, of course, all goes into your Stripe backend. And then we can see here that we did pay the $14.99 for May. So naturally, the next question is, what happens if we try to subscribe again? We'll click on buy now. And you can see here it is $14.99 per month. More words go here. We can click subscribe. We have our $14.99 a month, and we can check and see if this is actually working. So, okay, how do we do that? Well, we need to come over to our, I guess our nav bar would be a good place to put this, and we'll just create a link for this. So we'll come into the, I guess it might be under layouts and navbar.html.erb. We'll full screen this. We'll copy the blog path here. We'll change this to say members. We'll tab this over just to clean it up a bit. It'll go to our members _ dashboard _ path, and it can stay a nav link. We'll come over here, we'll refresh. Looks like we have a members link. We'll click on it. It takes us to the members dashboard. Now let's try to go here. If we're not signed in, it takes us to the sign in page. That makes sense. Now we want to sign up as a different email. I'll say john@doe.com with a password of password. We'll give it a name of John Doe, and then the rest of this we'll just spam with nonsense because it doesn't matter. And then we'll click finish. And of course, here we have the undefined method for the billing portal that I was talking about earlier, except I believe this is in the pages controller and not on the home page. So we also need to check in there. So let's come into the pages controller. And what we want to do here is we want to return unless we're the current user, which we already have. And then we'll do a return if the current user.payment processor is nil. Of course, you don't want to keep all these links on your home page. Just doesn't make sense. But in this case, we're just doing it for the sake of it. So John Doe, not a member of our application. Let's see if he goes to the members dashboard. You can see here it renders the alert saying you need an active sub, and then it takes you to the checkout page where you can create your subscription. So I'm not going to do this. Instead, what I want to do is check what happens if I have an expired subscription. So for this, I'm going to say dean@example.com and a password of password. So I'm going to manage my billing. I'm going to cancel my plan. Actually, I won't cancel my plan. Instead, we'll just simulate it being out of date, I guess. So let's say for some reason you're out of date. If it's active, it should automatically rebill and it'll run the check because the time is expired. But let's say you cancel it and now you're trying to, I don't know, see if you can still access this. So we have to come into the models, concerns. I just realized that I put the subscription concern in the controller and not in the user. Let's take this and let's put this in the user concerns because it makes a little bit more sense to put it in the model. And then in here, what we can do is when we do our check for time.now, we can just do a check for let's do 1.months.from_now, I think. We'll do the same down here. So we'll save that, come out of here, refresh the page. We'll come over to the members page and it'll tell us we need an active subscription. Now in this case, we have an active subscription. It's just the logic's a little bit messed up. But if we were to come in here and cancel our subscription, so we come to the home page, manage billing, we'll click cancel. We'll say we want to cancel this plan. It's too expensive, submit. We've now canceled. And now if we come over to the members page, now it makes a bit more sense because we are at the end of our trial period or the end of our grace period here. Now, if we set this to like, I don't know, 15 days from now, our subscription should still be good because it's good for a month. So we'll save this. We'll come over here and we'll click on members. And it still lets us see the members dashboard. If you don't want people to see it, then you just don't have this logic, right? You can check if the subscription status is active or something if you'd prefer to do it that way. In this case, I prefer to allow them to still have access for the rest of the month because I already charged them. But okay, that's going to do it for this tutorial. Hopefully this was helpful. It's kind of a chore to go through all this Stripe stuff and figure it out because there's really not a lot of documentation on it. Feels like it's one of those things that the industry knows how to do and doesn't feel the need to teach everyone else how to do. So hopefully this was helpful, and if it was, I will see you in the next tutorial.